this mic works really well with a button-down shirt, and I always wear a button-down shirt, except for today. So that was a fun lesson this morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm super excited for today because I get to close out our series on these bad $, women who have led to Jesus and then gone past Jesus. Today we talked about Mary Magdalene, and actually when we decided this sermon series, I was like, I want Mary Magdalene. She's really cool. And then through lots of research and reading the Bible, I realized that everyone in the Bible is named Mary. There's like 7 of them. And boy, did I not know who Mary Magdalene was. And so through lots of research and looking at all of that, I narrowed it down and kind of figured out who she is. I learned a couple things. Number 1, don't read all 4 crucifixion narratives without reading the resurrection really late at night by yourself alone. It's very sad. Lots of emotions. Don't do that. I also learned that no one else can keep the narrative straight. There was a lot of like, ooh, Mary maybe did this. This was maybe Mary Magdalene. Who knows? Learned that Mary Magdalene a lot of times is thought to be a prostitute, but she probably wasn't. And people are like, I don't know where that rumor came from, but it's mostly just a rumor, probably. Also, if you then read all of the resurrection narratives in a row, lots of emotions as well, but much better ones. So, highly recommend just reading them all in a row when you're alone after you've read all the crucifixion narratives that are sad. So, as I was reading this, I was learning more and getting pretty excited about the sermon. And I was just thinking, Easter has always been my favorite holiday. I know we're kind of leading into Christmas, so I'm jumping ahead, but we're talking about Mary Magdalene. She's a big player in Easter. Easter, it's always been my favorite. I live in Wisconsin, so like all of the months from October until like March are just sad and cold and gray. I know it's cold here as well, so it's, a little bit of the feeling. You just take that and like multiply it times 10. That's how it is. And then you get to Easter, and usually it's like the birds are singing, sun is shining, snow is melting, hopefully. Maybe the grass is green if you can see it. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you're hunting for Easter eggs in a foot of snow. It's options, right? But it's really, really cool when everything's coming back alive. I love colorful clothing. As you guys may have noticed today, I've toned it down, but usually it's pretty ridiculous. And Easter brings out the most colorful clothing, of course. The hymns at church are the best, and I love jelly beans. Like, I could eat a whole bag of jelly beans just sitting down. Just could eat right through one. I never have, but you never know, I might someday. And my favorite hymn of all time, like hands down, is one called In the Garden. Now, I'm not going to sing it, that's for later. But let's come back to Mary Magdalene, right? So, what do we know about Mary Magdalene, right? As I said earlier, not much. I figured the main things that we can read out of the Bible is that she had some demons, and then Jesus got rid of them. It says that she had 7 demons in some of the different narratives. And then after that, she kept following Jesus around. This is kind of a little bit unique because a lot of the people that Jesus healed or cured or got rid of their demons or did something to help them, a lot of them stayed where they were. Or they kind of stayed in the background. But Mary Magdalene followed Jesus. She stayed with him, and she was a pretty big player. Jesus and her were very, very close. If she's not Martha's sister, I always think she is. But she's not. And she also was not the woman who washed Jesus' feet, which there's some thought that maybe she was, but she was not. She was definitely at the cross, and she was definitely at the tomb on Sunday morning at Easter. At the very least, when she was at the tomb, she saw an angel, a couple angels perhaps, and she probably saw Jesus. She's lauded often as the first evangelist because she saw Jesus on Easter morning, and she ran to tell all of the disciples. She said, "This is happening. Let's spread the good news." Now, all of this stuff is really cool. Like, she was a pretty prominent woman that was able to follow Jesus around. She had a group of women that she's always considered part of, where they're like, oh, these women followed Jesus. These women were with Jesus. These women were at the cross. These women went to go prepare the tomb. But I really want to focus on her closeness to Jesus. She loved him as a teacher and a friend. They were incredibly close. And with him, she had some things that she didn't have other places. I think we've kind of touched on it a lot throughout this whole series, where a lot of times the women that we talk about don't have a lot of power. They don't have a lot going for them. They're kind of stuck where they are. A lot of them are voiceless, some are pretty nameless, and a lot of them are defined by the people around them rather than themselves. Now, Mary Magdalene, when she was with Jesus, she had a voice, she had a face, and she had a name. Jesus gave her personhood and recognized her value. She was considered a part of his core group. And that's pretty incredible to think about. Now, that's all great, right? But what does that have to do with us today? How do we bring that into something that we care more about? Because it's really nice that Mary had a good relationship with Jesus. That's pretty cool. It'd be pretty cool than Jesus' friend. But let's bring it into today. So we are about to enter crazy time, right? It's almost Thanksgiving, and then this year it's especially crazy because Thanksgiving is almost as late as it could possibly be, and Christmas always stays the same. So Christmas is going to come pretty quick after that. At the University of Alabama, we've got a ridiculous schedule this year where we've got 2 days of school this week, Thanksgiving break, then we have Dead Week, which is the week before our exams, and then exam. So we get back from Thanksgiving break and we got to hit the ground running, and then we get out here. And so it's going to be super crazy for us. Now, I know that doesn't apply to 90% of you here, but other things are going to be crazy, right? Whether you're hosting Thanksgiving, whether you are making lots of dishes and bringing them somewhere, whether you're hosting family, whether you're driving to visit family, flying, or whether maybe this is a different holiday for you than it's been in the past. And then, right away, Christmas is going to come. And it's really easy to think, I'm just going to get through this, right? I'm gonna go until we hit January, and then I'm just gonna sleep for a week, right? It's very easy to say, okay, let's just power through this. Don't worry about getting burned out. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about what that relative's gonna say or this one or whatever. Just keep going. And maybe there's even more layers in your holiday than the idea of having to cook food and clean the house or travel. Perhaps there's some really cool firsts that are gonna happen. Maybe it's the first time you're welcoming a new relative to the family. Maybe it's the first Christmas for a grandchild. Maybe it's the first time you're celebrating in a new home. Or maybe you have some hard firsts coming. Your first time that dad, grandpa, uncle doesn't card return. Your first time that there's an empty seat over here. Your first time since fill in the blank. Or maybe you're dreading the inevitable, did you meet any cute boys or pretty women lately? Or are you going to put a ring on that soon? Or maybe do you think you'll be eating for 2 this year? Lots of questions, right? Or maybe just the, how's that job going? When you just really don't want to talk about it. Or what have you been up to lately? You've just been up to nothing. There's a lot of layers with Christmas and Thanksgiving. Relatives are great, but also awful. You know, there's good and bad to all of it. And that can lead to a lot of burnout. Because it's not only, there's just so much going on, right? There's so much close together. It comes into the time of the year where you can feel a little bit sad because you don't go, today it's a beautiful day. But we're coming into the time where you might go outside and you're like, oh my God, I'm getting back in bed. Because there's, no sunshine, no warmth, no reason that you want to be outside. So it's coming to the time where burnout this year by like half. And it's because people are just drowning in homework and assignments and just like, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to get home for Thanksgiving, but then also come back and get everything done that they need to get done? There's just kind of this oppressive feeling that we can feel there. Now let's come back to Mary. Mary was under this oppressive feeling. She was in this burnout place. There had been some intense activity. When you read the gospel narratives, Jesus, it really ramps up. It's pretty intense from starting to spread his narrative. There's a lot of times where it talks about Jesus having to escape the crowds. Jesus having to step aside to find some quiet space. Now Mary was right alongside all of these things with Jesus. She was stuck in all of the craziness, right alongside him for a lot of his ministry. And so she was definitely feeling that. And then it came to a huge climax, the crucifixion. Mary was at the cross with the other women, with the disciples. Now, there's a lot of questions she's dealing with, a lot of questions she's asking. What happens next? I've been following Jesus around with these other women. Do I get to stay with these other women? Or do I have to go back to wherever I came from? Is my life in danger? Jesus was just crucified. The man she's been following was just killed. And it wasn't like he died. It was a crowd yelling, crucify him. It was people pushing and shoving and saying, no, we need this man to die. And she was around him. Not only that, she just lost one of her closest friends. How do you mourn your friend when everyone around you, except for that core group, had just yelled, crucify him? How do you answer, how are you, when something like that is what you're living in? I don't think there's an answer to that. But I think Mary finds the answer. I think that she figures out how to do it. Let's go and read what she does. So, John chapter 20, verses 1 through 18. Now, it's a little bit different story in each gospel, what Mary's doing, and what exactly this resurrection scene looks like. But I think John gives us a picture. And just kind of imagine, think about the emotions that she might be having, the burnout she's facing, and what exactly this Easter morning looks like. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the tomb. So she ran and went to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one whom Jesus loved, and said to them, they have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we do not know where they have laid him. Then Peter and the other disciple set out and went toward the tomb. The two were running together, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He bent down to look in and saw the linen wrappings lying there, but he did not go in. Then Simon Peter came, following him, and went into the tomb. He saw the linen wrappings lying there, and the cloth that had been on Jesus' head, not lying with the linen wrappings, but rolled up in a place by itself. Then the other disciple, who reached the tomb first, also went in. And he saw and believed, for as yet they did not understand the scriptures that he must rise from the dead. Then the disciples returned to their homes. So in this moment, they've discovered that Jesus is gone, Mary's seen it, and the disciples have come to see it, and then they've left. Now it's just Mary again. But Mary stood weeping outside the tomb. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb, and she saw two angels in white, sitting where the body of Jesus had been lying, one at the head and the other at the feet. They said to her, woman, why are you weeping? She said to them, they have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him. When she had said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not know it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you looking for? Supposing him to be a gardener, she said to him, sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away. Jesus said to her, Mary. She turned and said to him in Hebrew, Rabboni, which means teacher. Jesus said to her, "Do not hold on to me, because I have not yet ascended to the Father. But go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went and announced to the disciples, "I have seen the Lord." And she told them that he had said these things to her. Now, just imagine what that would be like. You think you've lost your friend. And it's been a terrifying couple days. Because that was it's around the Passover festival, right? So there's a lot of people around. It's like Thanksgiving. Everybody's come home. But instead of coming home to eating turkey, they come home to Passover, and they're all together for that. And then there's this mob scene that ends in Jesus' crucifixion. And that's what Mary's been part of. And she's not sure what to do, so she goes to where Jesus is. She goes to find him. She goes in the quiet of the morning and goes to find Jesus. But when she gets there, he's gone. Now, she's not expecting to find anything but Jesus' body. She's just looking for anything that's an answer. And she finds nothing. It's just empty. And then there's these figures there. The disciples have left. They've come, they've looked, and they've gone. It's just her again. Then she sees these angels and talks to them, and then she sees this man that looks like a gardener. She doesn't know who he is. But then the moment that Jesus names her, the moment that he gives her personhood again, the moment that he says, "Mary," she knows exactly who he is. And can you imagine that moment? I have no idea what that would be like, where that just utter despair that then leads to complete joy and confusion and the idea that you just kind of have no idea what's happening. And Mary responds, just embraces him, just calls his name as well. So they name each other at this point. Names are important. They give you personhood. When someone calls you by your name, that's saying that they know you're an individual, saying that you are this. And they're going to take the time to remember that and call you by that name. Jesus does that for Mary, and then she does it right back to Jesus. Now again, how does that transfer to us today? What exactly does that look like for us? When we're reaching a stage of burnout, or a feeling of not sure where to go next, not sure what to do next. Well, Mary went to where Jesus was. She went to a place that she could be in quiet and in peace, and a place that she could clear her head, a place that she could be away from the questions of others, and just look after what she needed to look after. For me, when I reach a stage of burnout, or just a hard day, it means that I prefer a run, or I ride my bike. Now, I do both of those things when I'm not having a hard day. I enjoy both of them. But when I'm in that place where I don't know where to go next, that's what I do. And I pause in the middle of a run, in the middle of a ride, when I have to. I'm usually mountain biking, so it's in the woods usually. And I just stop. A lot of times, I just pray. I just stand there. And sometimes, it's praise. It's Thanksgiving. It's like, all right, this was awful, but thank you God for this, this, and this. And that's a way to refresh. Other times, it's I don't know what's happening. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know what's going next. It's a lot of questions. Like, I don't know what the future holds, God. I'm not sure what's going on here. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing. But it's just a time to just be. To go and look for Jesus. It means that I run not to the cross, but to the tomb. I run to the grave. I run to the place where I found Jesus last, and I try to find him again. Now, This Sunday morning, maybe the sun is shining, feels like maybe for the first time, that moment that Mary's in, you've got to find that place. Mary found it in the tomb. I find it when I ride my bike and when I run. And that place can be a real place. It can be a very specific place. You can say, this is my place that I go to. This is the place that I run to find Jesus again. Or perhaps it's not a real place. Perhaps it's just a feeling. Perhaps it's just a song. Perhaps it is a prayer. Perhaps it is a Bible story. Perhaps it's your family. Whatever you can find that is your place to run to, you've got to find that. Now, coming back to this hymn, it's my favorite hymn. I'm not going to sing it because I'm terrible at singing it. You don't want me to sing it. But I'm going to read a couple verses from it. Now, this hymn was written by a pharmacist. He was a pharmacist, and he decided that he didn't want to do that anymore, gave it up, and was like, I'm just going to write hymns, because that's what I'm supposed to do. And he's written a bazillion hymns. But I think that other ones I really the most famous one is this one, that I come to in the garden. He wrote this after he dreamt about Mary Magdalene. He had a dream about this passage where Jesus calls Mary's name and she falls at his feet. And one of the main lyrics is, I come to the garden alone, while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses. And he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own. Now, some people can criticize this hymn. Some people are haters. And, they're out there and they're like, he didn't really walk with her and talk with her, it was so quick. But I don't think that's the point of this hymn. I don't think that's the point of the story. I think when you read it that way, I think it's missing a lot. I think Mary's emotions when Jesus claims her are enough to make it feel like she's been with him for hours. Enough to make it feel like she's been standing with him, walking with him, talking with him. Now, she goes there to be found, right? She goes to the garden. And she's at her lowest point. I think that's a key part here that we need to look to, is that Mary is out of options. And that's exactly what Jesus claims her. He's been there all along. He's with us all the time. But sometimes we have to go back to where we can find him and seek after him and look for him. And that's the only way that we can get back sometimes. And that's when Jesus is going to come for us. Again, he's been there all along the way. Sometimes we have to look for it. Sometimes we haven't been able to see it. But he's been there. And he's going to name and claim you. He's going to say, you're his own. Because he's always been there. You've never not been his. Even when you think you're not, or you don't want to be, you are. Now what we can take out of this today is it's important to go back to where you found Jesus before. Whether or not you've lost him, or maybe you just got lost in the hurriedness and the hustle and bustle and the, I don't know if I'm ever going to clean this house, or this house isn't going to be clean enough for so-and-so. That's what happens to me every time I'm on visits. I'm like, well, I can clean it, but it's never going to be clean enough. She's great, I love my mother, but she likes things to be clean. So whether that's what you've got lost in or not, it's important to go back, to find a place where you can be named and claimed and remember that that's where your value comes from. And then, once you've done that, you go back out into the hustle and bustle, and you answer those obnoxious questions. And you sit through somebody's telling of this story about this big fish they caught, where the fish gets bigger every time. And they've told you the story 100 billion times. But you sit there, and you listen to it, and you nod, smile and you laugh when you're supposed to. Because you remember who you are, you remember whose you are. And that gives you the ability to get back to what's important. But the most important thing is to remember that you can always